Oh. 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 Welcome to Meaningful Mornings. Today, we celebrate 400 mornings that have been dedicated to Bhagavad Gita only. That's over 120 hours to one book. If you think of all of the books in your life, have you given more than 120 hours to any book? And we've not even completed 1/3 of this book yet. Gita in daily life, that is a solid workshop idea. Gita 365, that's a solid app. What we're doing together is the direct experience. This is live, this is intimate. And for this, I offer my gratitude to all of you. Every morning, after our children leave for daycare, I read multiple commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. This is my form of listening to Sri Krishna as he speaks to me in different ways. And then the following morning, whatever he's shared, I share with his bhaktas, his devotees. This week, I shared with all of you that our sadhana should be contemplation. You have given me this opportunity for 400 mornings. And then that should be expressed as your seva that is caring for people the way you care for yourself. We are all bhagya. I being the most bhagya. Bhagya means fortunate. To be living in Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam means Bhagavataha idam. That which relates to divinity. Every morning, all day, we keep relating to divinity. Throughout chapter 6, I've been sharing frameworks because frameworks are forms of reminders. Like we have rituals in Sanatana Dharma, in a more contemporary sense, frameworks. One of the first frameworks I shared were the 5 S's. Space and seat are like that which is far away. Then sense and sentiment is like that which is nearby. Surrender is inside. And the fulfillment of all of this, spirit. Another framework I've shared is purification, purification is to lead one to preparation, which is to lead one to process. Process is contemplation. In the earlier framework, surrender is contemplation. Are you feeling how much is required to contemplate? Space, seat, sense, sentiment, just to surrender. Purification, preparation, just for process. And the completion of this, perfection. I went through every verse yesterday sharing how it fits into this framework. And I casually shared one more yesterday where I described lifestyle should help bring one to a room, which should help bring one to you, which should help bring one to the fulfillment of this is nature. You are not who you are or what you're thinking today. You are your nature. All of these frameworks are to remind us to practice. We have read, we have said thousands of times, practice makes perfect. What is perfect? Joy is perfect. What is perfection? The one who's established in joy. If you're not practicing, and what Prince Arjuna shares in verse 33, there's no empathy for that. Anyone who is practicing, space, seat, sense, sentiment, surrender, purification, preparation, process, lifestyle, room, you. Anyone who's practicing will feel what he shared. Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogastvaya proktaha. Shri Krishna, what you have taught. For 6 chapters, zooming into chapter 6, Samyena Madhusudana. You have shared this from a place of balance, and what you're sharing will help to balance. Etasyaham na pashyami. I don't see this. I don't feel this. Chanchalatvat stitim stiram. I cannot be established in this because I am chanchala. I'm restless at every level. My lifestyle, my room, me is restless. How can I be established in my nature? Those who are practicing would have felt that they are distracted. By show of hands, how many of you have felt this? You would have felt disturbed. Disturbed from the outside, distracted from the inside. How many of you have felt disturbed while you're practicing contemplation? And you would have felt distant. What does this all mean? I'm feeling dull. How many of you? Prince Arjuna elaborates on what chanchala is feeling like. He's able to assign words to this chanchala, and this is practical because then he can work on it. We can work on it. Verse 34 is a popular verse in this chapter in Bhagavad Gita. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna Pramati balavadradam tasyaham nigraham manye vayur iva sudushkaram. He refers to Shri Krishna as Krishna, almost out of surrender, helplessness. Manaha chanchalam, my inner world, not just the mind, but my inner world is restless. Why manaha is used, that is the mind. There are 4 facets to our inner world: memory, mind, intellect, ego. The memory is not active. It's not an active part of our inner world. The mind is the first active part. That's why we always describe ourselves as the mind. I'm sharing this insight so you know that you are more than the mind. Our inner world is complex. It is comprehensive. Specifically, what is this chanchalam? Pramati. Pramati is when the thoughts are going in a direction you don't want them to go in. Balavat, when these thoughts that are going in a direction that you don't want them to go in, as you think, so you become, those thoughts are creating an attachment. Balavat means strong. The thoughts have become an attachment. And dridam means irresistible. Dridam means one cannot change this now. So one has to act on what is thinking on. We have already experienced these teachings in chapter 2. These teachings come out in what is typically known as the ladder of fall. The first facet of what chanchala is, pramati, means being distracted. In chapter 2, the word is dhyayataha. Dhyayataha. Balavat, this distraction becomes attachment. In chapter 2, this is called sangaha. Dhyayataha drops us down to sangaha. And dridam is desire. Desire. In chapter 2, this is called kamaha. And you know these are just 3 drops. There's 5 more to go. But it all started with dhyayataha. That is being distracted. And how a majority of what was shared in this chapter was about direct, or you will be distracted. Tasyaham nigraham manye. Referring to this inner world, nigraha means to control or direct. Manye, my feeling, my analysis. Vayur iva sudushkaram. It's the same as trying to control or direct the wind. Did you all do that yesterday? Did you control the wind? Did you direct the wind? Karam means to do. Dushkaram means that this is a difficult doing. Sudushkaram means this is a very difficult doing. Prince Arjuna is a really solid student. I told you, pariprashnena, he is reflecting lots. He's not complaining or blaming or annotating. He's trying to understand. He wants to work on this. A couple of more insights. When the mind is chanchala, this is an extremely disintegrating experience because, remember I told you about our inner world, memory, mind, intellect, ego. The intellect knows where the mind is going is wrong. But the thoughts just keep flowing and flowing and flowing. The mind hypnotizes us to feel that this is right. That is an extremely hypocritical way to live. The intellect knows this is right, but the mind hypnotizes us. I'm sorry, the intellect knows this is wrong. Let me change that. The intellect knows that this is wrong, but the mind hypnotizes us to feel that this is right. See how controlling and abusive that relationship is? How the only enemies in our lives are inside of us. And so, Chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, is a saving science. It is a making science for our whole life. Very soon, Prince Arjuna is going to express even more despair. He's going to share, I'm going to die, this body is going to die before I'm able to practice the way that you've described. And you have to visualize that he's crying and he's panting, saying, I want this, but I can't reach this. What will happen to me? And Sri Krishna will respond. This is the last portion of this chapter. Coming back to how saving and making this science is. All of us are getting older. All of us are going to die. This body. But what is not getting older and what is not going to die is our inner world. When Vivek's body dies, Vivek's inner world is simply going to move on to another outer world, as in body. We started chapter 2 with this. So the way we're living for our final decades or years, whatever position you're in, commit to developing your inner world because that's all that's going to continue with you. And this is why our community, knowing how serious this is starting the contentment challenge. The contentment challenge is to make sure that your day is revolving around contemplation, conversation, concentration. At 6 a.m., contemplate. At 12 p.m., conversation. To write out Om Ramaya Namaha, that the purpose of your morning, the purpose of your evening, you're acknowledging that in your day, it is for joy. Concentration. No complaining, blaming, or annotating for multitasking. Concentrate. I'm pleading and expecting every one of you to register for the contemplation challenge. Because if you've made it this far into Bhagavad Gita, into chapter 6, you know this has to be your lifestyle. And the contentment challenge is a way to facilitate your lifestyle in the direction of dhyana. If not, chanchala. Dhyayataha, sangaha, kamaha. Do you know how this ladder of fall ends? Brashta. That will come later in this chapter. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Oh. Oh. Appreciate, relax, enjoy, chant, inquire. The extrovert ego. The ego that is not trained. The ego that cannot contemplate. This is ever identifying. The ego identifies with the intellect, identifies with the mind. Since it is untrained, extrovert, non-contemplative, The ego makes the intellect and the mind feel that they can create joy. The equipments combined with the entities, that is, articles, beings, and circumstances, this combination will create joy. Obviously, then, the mind, the most active part of our inner world that we know of, that we feel, is going to be distracted. Will keep flowing to articles, beings, and circumstances. This will become solidified as an attachment and more solidified as a desire. And the source of all of this, the identifying ego. Direct your attention to this sense of identification. Our perfect sense of I is that of existence, awareness. The imperfect sense of I is identification with this and that. Contemplate on this sense of I. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.